All right, so this video is about hip internal rotation, and it's going to be a little bit different because it's about how to actually put some load into your hip internal rotation, meaning it's more active, not as passive, and we're going to be doing some things on our feet. So first off, there's a lot of videos, and we've even shot some where we show some hip internal rotation mobility type things, right? Like the 90-90 sort of things like this. We're working on hip internal rotation, getting some muscle activation, lifting the foot up and things like that. Lots of videos about that. We have some, there's plenty on YouTube showing that. But today I want to show you a little bit more of what it looks like to load it and why it's important. So this hip internal rotation is a common problem. It's actually, I find, a little more common in guys. For whatever reason, guys like to sit more, you know, with their legs out like this, so they never actually turn their legs in. So a lot of times we put a guy on their back, and this is a way you can, you know, look at your own hip internal rotation to see how much you have. And you should be able to turn your foot out like that about 30 degrees. But a lot of times when we lay someone down like this, they can turn in easy this way, about 45, and then we go to turn into hip internal rotation, and they only go maybe 10 or 15, whereas you should be able to get about 30 out to the side there. And hip internal rotation, if you don't have it, makes it really hard to do things like the single leg Romanian deadlift, some split squats and things like that. So the first way to load the hip internal rotation is to do a little bit of what we call a split stance internal rotation drill. So I would always start with doing the other hip internal rotation stuff we've shown you before, but let me show you this one on how to actually load it. So if I'm looking to load internal rotation of my hip on the right with my feet on the ground, what I want you to do is get into a split stance like this. And then what's hard about this exercise is actually being able to know that you're doing it right. And that's why I have this pole. It's great if you can take a pole and put it on your hips here. And then the key with this is, can you, keeping this leg still, is rotate your pelvis on the hip like this, okay? That's internal rotation. Now, the importance of the pole is that a lot of times if we put someone in this position here and then we tell them to rotate their hips in, they just do this. You just start turning the upper body, right? And so they have a hard time actually turning the hip on the leg, right? So we're turning the pelvis on the femur, and to make sure that your pelvis is moving, grab a pole like this, put it there on your hips, and then actually rotate in like that, okay? And what you'll feel is, a lot of times people feel a little bit of a glute stretch there. So you can go all the way in as far as you can go. And then it's also nice to go into a little bit of external rotation and go out this way. Again, maintaining the stability of the leg right there. Don't let this move around. If you're turning and that knee starts to turn out, then you're not really gaining any internal rotation. That has to stay there, okay? So this is sort of the base movement is bar on pelvis, and then turning the pelvis on the hip joint to be able to get that internal rotation, okay? So that's the first thing I want you to try. The progression of this would be then to go to a wall, and now with your foot on the wall, you can get a little bit more range of motion. So you're gonna get a little bit more here, foot on the wall. Again, you could use the PVC pipe if you want, and then turn it even a little bit further, okay? Moving into that hip internal rotation. Now, another way that you can load this and get a little bit more out of it is to actually use a weight. So then you come in here, foot on the wall, and then internally rotate, bringing that kettlebell down and across. Good, just like that. And again, you'll feel, especially on the way up, you'll feel that glute, you'll feel some of those hip rotators working to help you with that internal rotation. So that leads to basically an exercise that a lot of people call like a hip airplane. And a hip airplane is in the position of a single leg deadlift. So And this is sort of what we're working towards. So a single leg deadlift, and I'll kind of show you from the side right where Maddie's at is good. I'll show you this. This is sort of what a single leg deadlift looks like, okay? And the key to this is making sure that we don't rotate this way. So if I face this way towards the camera and I'm coming down, what a lot of people do if they lack hip internal rotation is they'll actually start to turn away like this. That's partly due to the lack of internal rotation, but it's also partly due to strength of the hip and the glute on this side to keep their back level, right? So, I don't know, I've never tried this before, but what if we put the pole back here, right? And if you see somebody doing this, right, the airplane turning sideways, right? You should be able to keep that pole level, hopefully it's level, as you go down, okay? So that's sort of the goal of this. And so sort of the hip airplane exercise, maybe we'll try with the pole, is to get into this position, and can you keep your hips level? Can you keep your pelvis level as you go into that single leg deadlift? And again, you may, if you feel a little pinching in here, that means you need work on this. And you should feel like the glutes are working to maintain this being level. And if your airplane tips to the side like this, then you need some work on it, okay? So if you've been working on hip internal rotation, maybe you try that test or have done some stretches and you're wondering, why am I doing this? Or you've just heard that you need to do it. This is a way that you can take it. It's kind of the next level of working on hip internal rotation. Don't just do the ones on the ground. Progress it to doing the ones I've just shown you, and it'll help you a lot with some of your single leg, split stance type of exercises in keeping a good flat back as you do them and getting the most out of those exercises. So if you have any questions, please comment below, and thanks for watching.